So welcome to our REDFeather Mind, Body, Spirit event. I'm Christopher McClure, and today we have a very special guest, writer, teacher, and thought leader, Evan Sutter, who most recently is the creator of Awake, a journal, a guide, a retreat, and a friend. And I have my copy right here. It's beautiful. And so we're going to discover it together as we go here. We want to catch up today to learn more about this amazing self-discovery tool and what's ahead. But first, a little background on Evan. Evan Sutter is a social entrepreneur, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, and an activist. It took living in an old rundown hut in the forest of a Buddhist monastery, which in itself is a fascinating tale I want to hear more about. So with your monk brother, so including exploring 50 countries for him to become a catalyst for reflection and transformation. There, Evan stepped away from the pleasure trap and embarked on a journey to enrich the lives of others and our communities and our planet. Evan has developed a reputation as an expert in happiness, meaning, fulfillment, and positivity, speaking publicly and working closely with businesses and organizations. Evan has been featured on ABC television, the Daily Telegraph, the Sydney Writers' Festival, and the Happiness and Its Causes Conference, and the GOTO Conference, and a range of popular podcasts. So wonderful to have you here. Evan, I'm honored actually to have you. Had some nice discussions. You're just a font of wisdom and positivity. Really too. So I was excited just to start my day here. It's early for us, late for you, for this. And
yeah,
I wanted
it's great to join you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. So I wanted to do this event to kind of to let the audience learn what a wonderful resource you are, and also how great Awake changes the game really. And so tell us a little bit about your background. Go into maybe your background. I want to learn more about please just go ahead. I'll let you talk.
Well, I guess like there's sort of two parts to that story, and one you sort of touched on before with that time in the Buddhist monastery. So
yes.
Prior to that, grew up in just outside of Sydney in New South Wales, Australia. Youngest of four brothers, which was a lot of fun, and grew up in a blue collar area. Sport was a big thing, and typically along the lines of that is a real masculinity culture type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my late teens and early 20s, I really sort of indulged in that kind of lifestyle. Super competitive, big ego, and really chasing after my my happiness and status and identity, in being great at sport and partying and drinking and sex and drugs. And then it was my brother who was a Buddhist monk living in Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village over in France, and sort of encouraged me again and again over email to come and spend some time with him. I think he could see me in this unhealthy, trap where nothing good was ever going to grow, and he said just come and spend some time with him. And 3 months there over in France was just really a chance to stop and slow down, and 3 months without my phone and TV and Wi-Fi and pubs and friends, and a chance to really for the first time in my life, just to be bored and lonely and not have anything to cover it up or run away from. So, and at the same time, I learned a lot of different tools, which were new to me, things like meditation and mindfulness and sitting and eating, walking meditation, and things like, sharing and learning how to be vulnerable and communicating within groups. And that was something that was a really big contrast to the life I just left behind, especially coming from that culture where, we're taught to be tough and not share our emotions. So, coming back from that experience, I really wanted to plant some seeds to get some other people to look at things a little bit differently. And it started with just writing a few articles about my experience there, and that led to a book, and from there invites to speak at schools and conferences and events. And the more I did that, the more I just got fascinated by happiness, why some people were happy and some people were not. And I dived into a whole range of books and research and studies to, all about well-being and aliveness and gratitude and things like that. And I essentially just how to live a good life. And I think that's sort of the journey I've been on since I was there in 2013. And it's led to, why we're here today with Awake.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. So I think that one of the driving forces at what is right in the beginning here is like, it's, that happiness is a skill, and why don't we train for it? I love that turn of phrase, because we train for plenty of other things, but we don't really examine, how to really embody that fully, and what that means, and I think just examining that, and just as from many different aspects, is what this, your journal. I don't even want to call it a journal. It's not really a journal. Journals are, I'm looking for. I call it a self-discovery tool because it's more than that. I mean, you can write, throughout it, and you can use these different habits throughout. And there's just, so how does it really kind of like, up the game really for just self-discovery tools in your estimation? How does it really, take what's out there? It crystallizes so many different concepts, but sometimes I'm trying to find that perfect word to say how it is. That's why we call it it's a friend, as a journal, so many things, So.
Yeah. Well, it's like what you said. It's like, it's a book and a journal. I think with my last book, I found that people like there was thought-provoking content, but then when it came to shifting habits and changing behaviors, there was not a lot of actionable practices there where they could actually, learn different things. So I really wanted to take the best of a book, some thought-provoking content with, the actionable practices of a journal and make it holistic and multidimensional and interactive. So, things like, some journals, they focus on gratitude, and gratitude is great and super important, but so too is, emotional intelligence and self-compassion and awareness and mindfulness and meditation. So I really wanted to bring all those things together to be, I really like, just a whole bunch of tools you can add to your toolkit just to, when things go wrong, which is inevitable and something we've experienced, a lot in the last couple of years, just, simple tools that we can rely on to, bring, I guess, a little bit of calm through the storm. So, one minute you might be working on, some gratitude and what went well. And then the next day you might be in a tech-free zone and taken to a guided meditation or a body scan. It's just like, different sort of skills that are multifaceted and interactive in a way. So I think that, and also super accessible and fun and engaging. I think these things need to be really engaging because sometimes we miss a huge population of people who, might be too complex for them or might not be interesting. So I really wanted to awake to touch on all those parts to be fun, engaging, accessible, and give them skills in a wide array of areas in life, which I think is important because everything connects to everything else, and it's all interconnected. Our relationships are super imperative. So I wanted to touch on sharing and communication and watering flowers and a whole range of compassion exercises too. So it was, a whole toolkit essentially.
Right. It's a whole toolkit and a fun little package too. We were looking at, Evan hasn't actually seen his copy yet. So he's like, oh wow. I pulled it up and I'm like, he's like, oh wow. So I really love this and I'm going to really live with it for the rest of the year. I intend on doing that. I've just started. And so in your estimate, I know you devoted some time to this, but how do you really work through the tool itself? Like, how do you suggest someone like take this and really, make it their own, I guess, really, because there is like a development, you develop almost like a relationship with it. And as far as I understand, how I'm beginning to already, just because I'm understanding myself better, working through, what I've done, just started here, and it's only been a little while, but I'm getting a lot out of it already. So how do you suggest someone, work through this self-discovery tool?
Well, I think it's probably best that you do start from start to finish because it does go through 4 foundations of exploration, know yourself, meaning, and presence, and gradually builds and gets a little bit more, I guess, deeper and complex as you go. So the questions, like in the investigations, get a little bit more complex and get a little bit more thorough. But also a lot of those practices in there are designed that they can be used at any time. So gratitude can be used at various points. You might dive into that one week, and then next week you might come in and focus on more of the presence elements, which might be the guided meditations and the body scan. So while it is better to work from start to finish, you can also dive in at any point to find what's speaking to you at that particular time of life, right? Like you might need different things that you might need a little bit more clarity or creativity. So spend some time with some mindfulness coloring, and maybe you might need some time to ask yourself some deeper questions. So you sit with the how am I writing meditation. So exactly. I think there's value in whichever way you want to play with it.
Yeah, that's my sense. I think that, that throughout this, it is, I would totally agree, ideally maybe to go through it once, but then not stop there. I think it's the kind of tool that that really, once you bring it into yourself and understand it fully, and you'll be able to pick out those pieces that are really going to get you where you need to be, where you want to be, too, which is, and everyone's going to be a little bit different as far as what they need, depending on where they're at, as well. So, so for this, if you could kind of like sum up the philosophy, of, awake, could you do that? Or is that what, if you could,
well, essentially it's, I really wanted to just provide a really simple, accessible way to allow people to enjoy their lives a little bit more, in the change and uncertainty, right? And I think life's fickle and ever changing and inconstant and unpredictable. So it's not about never suffering and avoiding suffering and avoiding things that are bad. It's about just having tools and skills that allow us to still grow and flourish when things do go wrong. And that was the whole sort of premise and philosophy behind the book, just to make it accessible, fun, and also interesting and helpful for a wide range of people at any stage of their life, and something that they can go back to it many times and throughout the day or throughout the week and take with them, wherever they are, and sort of become, as you said, like a little bit of a friend or a guide or a treat, and a time when we can use it in any way that feels fit.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it really is that kind of thing. And it's very, highly portable as well. And, it won't quite fit in your pocket, but, it's good for to kind of stow anywhere. And it's made in a way that's really going to, hold up over time.
And it's like you said, like for me personally, I spent so much of my time in my life, learning skills that didn't actually make my life more fulfilling or more enriching. Things like, kicking a football or punching a bag. But, these are the skills that allow us to find more clarity and more peace of mind. And I think everyone would agree that, life's better when we're not always angry with our partner or friend. And, if we're always stressed and overwhelmed and full of anxiety and not sleeping well or not eating well, life becomes a little bit more tougher, and it's tough enough already. So these are just simple ways that
hasn't gotten easier either. So I think this is really the perfect time for a tool like this too. I think it's manifesting in just the right time for people, because people are looking for a way to reconnect, not only to themselves but to other people, in various situations they may be in throughout the world. And I said this really fills a really needed purpose. So thank you for creating it. So so really, what through the process, what did you really enjoy about creating this title? What did you really get out of it?
I think I really enjoyed the fact that it was quite different to sort of writing a traditional book. There were so many different layers to it, as multi-dimensional. It's sort of like, I had a lot of questions like, what practices can I fit in here to allow it to flow really well, or what could be a nice break from, maybe a little bit more intensive introspection? How can we sort of, make it a little bit more enjoyable in that space? So I was like, a little bit different, like sort of creating it like you were a retreat. Like, how would you run a retreat for someone to get the most out of their couple of days at a different place? So and it also allowed me to work on it and collaborate with different people. I had luckily enough to have my brother, who was the monk who inspired me on that adventure over there in France, and he did all the guided meditations for me. So it was nice to be able to collaborate and work with him to really make it a really interactive tool.
That's great. And I was going to ask you too, like, along your own journey, is who's really inspired? This is always a loaded question. Who do you think has really inspired you the most? Now, it doesn't have to be one person. I mean, but so really, who's been that a focal or group of people really inspired you?
Well, I guess I've just mentioned my brother Nathan, who was inspired me on that journey, which really really shifted my life and changed the direction of my life in many ways. Took me from being stuck very firmly in that pleasure trap to realizing there's many ways to live a life. And I think I've been lucky that I've had three older brothers who are all quite different, and all being the youngest one, I've always been able to, I guess, learn a lot from looking at their successes and failures and flaws. And I think they've all taught me something a little bit different, whether it's one who taught me how to be more curious and playful and more balanced, and one taught me the importance of being kind and nice and trustworthy. So I think they've all played a role, and I think that all comes out of my book Awake and all my work, right? But being playful and creative and kind and authentic and having integrity. So I think I was very lucky in that way.
Wonderful. That's wonderful to have those resources close as well, to be able to inspire you too. And there are many things for those who everyone has normally somebody who has that inspiration. And just to bring it full circle with this too, this you can develop that kind of that back and forth almost with this title itself as well. I love how you have some of these throughout your the book. Is like, how am I? How am I? Really, I think it's a really neat kind of thing. And it's the fact of, slowing down and really asking yourself that very important question, how am I really, and really getting into where you're at with things.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like we
And
spend a lot of our time throwing that question out to everyone around us. We never really take the time to ask that for ourselves.
Exactly. No, it's important too to get that grounding for yourself, and then further on in the work here, you have actual thank you cards. It's fantastic that you can actually perforate it within here. You can pop them out and with a variety, and they're made in a way that you just put them right in an envelope and get them out there. And what a fascinating idea. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I wanted to really create a balance of sometimes when we focus too much on ourselves, we can forget that we're so deeply connected to everyone and everything around us. So I wanted to have a nice balance between those compassion exercises like the sharing and the watering flowers and the thank you cards, and also with that deeper introspective stuff like the guided meditations and the how am I. So there's a good balance there between going in, but also going out to better support our friends and people in the community who might, equally need these skills and tools. So I think, I think for me, one of the biggest things I learned being in the monastery was learning how to be kind and to share and be vulnerable and open. And I think that benefits so many people around us too. So I think, when we, for instance, the benefits of, doing a good deed or complimenting a friend or watering a flower, it releases our feel good chemicals. We get a little helper high while satisfying our need for connection, and boosts positive emotions for appreciation and gratitude, and leads to high functioning people and higher self-esteem. So it's simple things like that that can have a huge impact on our lives and our health and our well-being, but also the people around us, which I think is when it becomes even more special.
Definitely. No, that's incredibly important as well. So I guess that said, like I'm saying, it's a really important book, journal, friend, guide for this time as well. But how would you say that really the state of spirituality is in the world right now? Where is, what are people looking for at the moment?
Well, I think we're definitely seeing a growth in popularity of things like yoga, and whether that's more of the spiritual side of things or people just exercising. And we're seeing obviously an increase in meditation going mainstream and things like that too. And more access to books and podcasts and apps that are talking more about these things. So it's certainly left the realm of the hippies where it was probably not too long ago. But I think with the rise of social media, we're still seeing the huge impact on our consumer culture and a chasing and desire for material things, and are, I guess, putting up on the pedestal influencers and social media influencers were opposed in different epochs. There was authors and poets which had different values attached to that. So I don't know. I think there's definitely a huge change and more people getting access to these things, which is great. But there's also I think sometimes we still value the big bicep over the clear mind.
Good point. That's a good, very, very clear image there too. And even though I think there is a movement really to get away from that, it's challenging to get away. You mentioned this term a lot, the pleasure trap, too, that people are trying to get out of too. And I think that even sometimes it's almost like quicksand. Sometimes the more people try and pull out of it, the more it get pulled back as well. And I think that using actually a tool. Okay, I'm going to build a metaphor here. So you're quicksand pulling out, so this is like a tool. This is like the rope. I think would pull something out, someone out of, trying to get out, but getting pulled back in. And I think this is a clear way. And I think it's important that it's not just on a screen too. I know that, there are other options and great options out there. I'm not just discounting any options that are out there, apps, stuff like that. But there's something different about having a tactile title, a book. Something personally, it's just now we are a publisher, so we're going to be a little partial to that. But I really do feel that having something physical that you can interact with in this very specific way is important, and then reflect on as well. You can go back and as I mentioned, the how am I exercises or your daily gratitudes or those kinds of things in there to be able to go back and say, oh yes, what you can't do as readily or in the same way in a digital format. And I think that's important, as well, just for my own.
Yeah, I think it's, we live in a uber modern, super connected, disconnected world. And the more we can learn to sort of stop and slow down and step outside that noise and reconnect to our bodies, reconnect our minds with our bodies, the more we can, find a bit more clarity and become more aligned to who we are and what we like and what we want to do with this life, rather than, sometimes it's so easy when we're within that to get pushed and pulled in every which direction and, not have any influence on the direction in which we do head. And I think that's, the problem with tech. And sometimes, it can really sort of, our shorter attention spans and things like that can lead us, in ways that we
exactly. That's
really
what I'm saying. And not to, be too, old-fashioned or anything like that. And I think there are many great advances that tech
definitely
brought for sure. So, but there is something that is very grounding about actually having a physical book in front of you, something you can interact with, read, write in, those kinds of things. Dog ears, I'm always making notes and stuff and already, so this is perfect for me. So,
I think that's like a book you can really make your own. There's illustrations and coloring in there, and there's a whole range of different exercises where you circle your values, you connect it, and you write, and there's many layers to that. So I think stopping, slowing down, and there's so many benefits to writing and reading in under a tree and getting some sun and vitamin D, and you can take that anywhere you want. So
Yep, you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about your battery life then, or the Wi-Fi connection, anything like that. You're good no matter where you go. So, so on a personal level, so what do you tend to do? What do you read a lot? Do you do, what are your own methods that you use the most for
my own little practices to?
Yes, exactly.
I use a lot of the stuff in the book. I think that's the whole reason why I wanted to create it. These are things that over the last sort of 7-8 years that I've been playing around with and experimenting, things I've learned from the monastery that I've adapted to, make it more relevant to everyday people, things I've learned, as a speaker, traveling around and getting to meet other authors and psychologists and people working in the wellbeing space. So I've brought it all together. So I still do, most mornings some gratitude work and what went well, just reflecting on 3 things that went well the day before and how I played a role in making that happen, just to really sort of shift away from that negative thoughts. We're really good at recognizing our faults. So it's really good to, see the good things. And the more we do, we continue to see more of them. So I do my How Am I Writing meditation every day, and I do a lot of my sitting and walking meditation too. So these are all things in the book too that we would we'll learn more about. Sometimes you think that we need a really, a rigid sitting meditation practice, but it can be fun. It can be walking meditation, it can be eating, it can be drinking tea meditation, anything that allows us to bring joy and life just to ordinary moments. And I think the more we do that, the more we can connect to, all the good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything can be a meditation as well. And that's an important point to you. And I think that this is a way to really, help people to be creative about viewing these concepts and things and getting to know themselves and getting to understand how to connect, because it gives so many different resources, so many different methods to do that, and everyone's going to be different as you talked before, as far as how they're going to utilize this, and so that's why it really is something for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, like it allows for people to be creative and skillful and find a way that works for them. There's there's a whole lot of openness and curiosity there to be playful and see how it suits your life.
Exactly. So that said, I mean, you have a creative process. What's your creative process really like? What's
I'm luckily my life and all my work and projects are all quite aligned and integrated. So I really like to, whether it's sit with an idea or a project and then step away from it, not try to sit and outthink the problem, but just let it sit to the side and marinate and play in the subconscious for a little while. And I find myself just as creative and maybe productive, if that's the right word for it, whilst I'm going for a run or a surf. And I like to come up with a lot of my talks while I'm on a long stand-up paddleboard. So it's places like that where you let it sit and marinate there, and you go out and might come to you while you're surfing or things like that. Just so I've got so many different projects and in different layers and different elements. So I like to play with them earlier enough and give them a bit of time to really without me trying to force things.
Definitely, that's a great philosophy to have, and there are many great thinkers. I believe Einstein has some of his best thoughts when he was riding his bicycle, and I think that there are many great thought leaders who have used that process, and it's so valuable. And even the process of just whatever situation, just taking a breath sometimes before responding, or before just giving any idea or any situation time to marinate in things, and it makes a huge difference, really. And I think that just if you take even just one thing out of this, even that is important to understand, to give yourself space.
I think sometimes if you sit and try to outthink our problems again and again, it's it's difficult and it's tricky, and we sort of get overwhelmed. So just stepping outside that with a lot of these simple tools too, that like maybe you have a break for a couple of minutes and do a bit of walking meditation. It allows you to reconnect your mind with your body, and rather than just being stuck in the clutter again and again, right? It's simple things like that which allows you to come back reinvigorated and refocused and refreshed, and actually really enjoy the stuff you're doing, rather than always making it like a chore.
Exactly. That's the perfect perspective, Billy. So what's next? What's up ahead? What lies ahead for you, Evan?
Well, as I mentioned before we got on here, I'm currently in COVID and in a lockdown in a 5-kilometer radius. So just at the moment, just really trying to find joy in the uncertainty, and and be grateful for all the things I've got. But I'd love to get back on stage and get back into my keynote speaking. The last talk I did was in Copenhagen in 2019. So I think, since then, that whole industry has changed for most speakers. In the meantime, I'll continue to write talks for my podcast Satisfaction, and keep on working on my social enterprise Hapsley, which is, I'm working with local government here in Australia to better support local small businesses and regenerate local communities, and and really help, turn, boring and unrelatable CSR initiatives and make them fun and engaging and relevant for consumers, and really connect small businesses with consumers so we can magnify social and environmental impact. And also Awake. I think I mentioned to you before, I'd really like to dive into Awake Kids and really create these kids tools to thrive for young people. And I think that could be really beneficial in a fun, engaging way too.
Yeah, there are a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire, as they say, as far as what's happening there. So if someone wanted to interact with you, what's the best way to do it? You mentioned a couple of different resources there, as far as like, are you on social media? Can people interact with you that way?
Yeah, at social media, you can get me at Hapsley, which is HAPZLY, which is the business, but I also do a lot of work around individual well-being and my podcast, and at my website, evansutter.com, which is be able to find all my talks and videos and articles and the podcast and all my upcoming events, which is not too many at the moment because
well, hopefully that's
it's impossible.
But this is the perfect time then to really delve into something like this now.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is a good time. I think, like, I look around and I see a lot of friends and a lot of people struggling, and they've also got a little bit more time on their hands, and I think it's maybe a perfect opportunity to maybe look within, and rather than always looking outward.
Exactly. So that's a perfect way to wrap up our talk here. So thank you so much, Evan, for the time and talking about it, and for creating this too. I really think it's going to be a great resource, for so many, and help to change people's lives. I really think it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people, to give them what they need at this perfect time. So it's the perfect tool for the perfect time. So thanks to everybody who had a chance to check this out too when we put it up on our REDFeather Mind Body Spirit Facebook page as well. It'll be on our YouTube as well. So Wake is available on REDFeatherMBS.com. It's available. Will be available. It's coming throughout the world here. It's just landed in the States, coming to the Australia there as well, and wherever you happen to be tuning in to. So wherever Mind Body Spirit items are sold or trade items are sold, you'll be able to get your hands on Awake. So thanks to everybody. Thanks you again, Evan, for such a wonderful discussion. We'll have to have another one here soon, because I want to, as this goes forward, I want to engage with you as far as what I'm learning, and you can be maybe my guru here for this. So
yeah, beautiful.
Awesome.
I'd love to join you again. Thanks very much, Chris.
Thank you. All right, take care and have a beautiful day, everyone.
See you later.